That's round one. Unbeknownst to you, one night again you're sleeping, I send the guys in, they kidnap you after having chloroformed you, send you off, or take you off rather, to the submarine out in the middle of the ocean somewhere and seal you up again, and then you wake up after a certain amount of time and there you are again, exact same submarine. And again, there's a note waiting for you on the table, and when you read the note from me, what it says, exact same situation as last time. The only difference is that this time you have your notes from the last trip that you made. Okay. All right, so you're now in a better situation cognitively, but let me ask, what do you know in this circumstance? Would you say that you know how to get to New York Harbor? And you would kind of say, well, I can probably get through this again, and I can probably find my way back to New York Harbor. And what I do have to go on are the notes that I made from last time. But what's the status cognitively of the notes that you made from your previous trip? They're certainly very far from certainty, they're very far from revelation, they're certainly far from authoritative. You're probably not absolutely certain that your record keeping was perfectly accurate. There might have been some mistakes. You're not exactly sure that you were always going at 3 knots when you were going along. And so forth. And you're also not sure, because there was a whole lot of trial and error in your first trip, that that's the most efficient way to get back to New York Harbor. There might be various kinds of shortcuts that if you analyze your notes, you can find that you were doubling back at various points and you didn't really need to do that. So you're in a better situation cognitively, but still you're very far from knowing, right, in any very strong sense, how to get back to New York Harbor. Also, this is only to speak of your cognitive side of the equation here, so to speak. What also is important is to realize that you are in the ocean, and the ocean is a very fluid type of environment, which is in part why we are in a submarine in the ocean, according to this allegory here. We know that, for example, that thing that you banged into the first time when you were on the trip, what was that thing that you banged into? Is it still there? Well, it might be a whale, or it might rather have been a whale, and you banged into it and stunned it, but the whale is no longer there. So it might be the case that you could sail right through that particular place again. It might be that it was a rock formation that you banged into and that the rock formation is still there. On the other hand, it could have been that there was an undersea earthquake and that rock formation is no longer there and it's clear sailing again. On the other hand, there might have been earthquakes undersea at various other places when you were bopping around on the first place in the intervening time, and now there are rocks and various other things that you might bang into that you didn't bang into the first time through. You also know, have some knowledge rather, of ocean currents, that those are highly variable. And so when you thought you were going in a northeasterly direction in a fairly straight line, it might have been that you were drifting as a result of ocean currents or temperature inversions or all sorts of things that could have happened in this constantly changing, constantly evolving environment that is the ocean. So again, partly because of the partialness of your knowledge and partly because of the highly changeable nature of the environment that you are operating in, any claims that you might be making to yourself or considering that you know how to get back to New York Harbor would have to be at best very tentative, very probabilistic, right, and so forth. Nonetheless, you give it a shot, right? Again, we do the trial and error thing, and in some cases you figure out some efficiencies, and instead of bopping around in the ocean, say, for a month before you find your way back to New York Harbor, there you are, you're back in New York Harbor after 2 weeks. The harbor authorities release you from the submarine, and home you go again. All right, happy ending to that story. Until, yes, round 3, you wake up one morning, and there you are, you're back in the submarine again, same drill, except in this case here, I've also kidnapped one of your friends, and your friend is in the submarine with you. And I've left you a note to both of you saying exact same situation as the first 2 times, food, water, mechanicals, and so on. You also have your records from your previous 2 trips. The only difference is your buddy's along for some social company in this particular case. All right, now your friend is no doubt quite anxious right at this point here, and then you will find yourself just saying, no problem, I know how to get us back to New York Harbor. Again, with all the appropriate qualifications about your knowledge about how to get back to New York Harbor. But what if your friend surprises you at this point after having calmed down and says, well, while we're here, I don't really want to go to New York Harbor. I've got some vacation time, and nobody's really going to be worried about me as I take off at various points anyway. While we're here, why don't we go to Rio? Why don't we go to Cape Town? Why don't we go to Sydney? Let's go to some other exotic part of the world that we've never been to before. Now, here's the question. What's the status of your knowledge about how to get back to New York Harbor? If your friend says, no, let's go to Cape Town, South Africa, that would be a great trip. Well, it's completely useless, right? Your knowledge is no longer functional, it's no longer helpful, it's no longer workable given the new value framework that your friend is bringing to the particular situation here. All right, you've now heard Plato's allegory of the cave, and you've heard Stephen's allegory of the submarine. Which is a better allegory, right? Plato's a big shot in the history of philosophy. I've got a little competition going on with Plato, so you be the judge. Who has the best allegory?